Do you believe in angels? Divine beings that help us in difficult times or even facilitate a smoother passage to our last destination? The real case of a small feline named Oscar is sure to make you rethink the topic. Today's touching story left doctors and nurses at a hospital suspicious, who, upon seeing the amazing powers of that animal, were shocked and even scared. It all started in 2005, when all the employees of the Nursing and Rehabilitation Center Steerhouse in the United States decided that they would adopt 6 cats. And you might even wonder how unexpected it is for a hospital to allow animals to enter and stay, as hospitals always need to be very clean. However, it was not just any house. This place dealt with patients who were practically in the terminal stage and lent itself to palliative care for those who had incurable diseases. Therefore, the little animals were not only allowed but also encouraged. With them, patients felt better and calmer, having even for a moment forgotten that they were inside a hospital, making the treatment of those who were agitated much easier, functioning as therapeutic cats, which comforted those who were in their last weeks of life. In the beginning, cats were common, nothing more than just sleeping pets that were needy and rubbed up against employees when they wanted food. However, one of them began to draw the attention of one of the local doctors. He was grumpy and not sociable. He kept meowing at nurses and other staff on site, as if he was always complaining. He hated when they put their hands on him to move him or even to pet him. Many who worked close to him complained and asked for the kitten to be donated to some other place, since he had nothing therapeutic. But when people were about to die, the cat completely changed its behavior, looking like it turned into a completely different animal. It was then that one of the doctors at the nursing center, Dr. David Dosa, began to notice a pattern of behavior in the kitten. Despite not being friendly and appearing to be angry most of the time, the animal was friendly with some of the patients, who for some reason died shortly after the cat visited their room. The doctor thought he was going crazy, and that after so many shifts in a row, his mind was just playing tricks on him. After all, how could a doctor believe that a cat was predicting who would die, right? 6 months passed and Drive David still had a flea behind his ear. He didn't understand the cat's sudden sympathy with people who had almost died. And he decided to take one of his days off to follow the little animal around the hospital. Of course, the doctor didn't tell anyone that he was going to do that. It wasn't enough for him to think he was crazy. He didn't need other people to think that too. However, he was not the only one to notice the strange behavior of the feline and realized that the rumors were already circulating in the hospital corridors. Dr. Joan Tino also formulated theories about the pussy among other employees of the enclosure. With his notebook in hand and madness up to date, David begins following the cat, who has been nicknamed Oscar, around the hospital and noting all of his steps and rooms visited. After waking up from his nap, Oscar begins his rounds and looks around the halls the way a king admires his entire empire. He begins to stretch and proceeds to the 3rd floor of the hospital, where the patients suffering from dementia are. At that time, Dr. David was already fully committed to his new hobby of chasing pets, and he takes it as if it were serious research, taking large notes and formulating wild theories, which most of the time went nowhere. The cat starts sniffing the rooms on the 3rd floor and decides to enter one of them. It was the room of a patient who had been a resident of the facility for more than 3 months. It would be impossible for the cat to pay her a visit and right after her death, thought the doctor. However, deep down he was afraid that it could really be true and that he was witnessing the last moments of that lady. She observes the pussy and strokes it, and Oscar reacts as if to say to leave him alone, being the usual grumpy. But to the relief of the skeptical doctor and the sick lady, the cat didn't stay more than 5 minutes inside the room and then left, following its daily rounds through the white hospital corridors. He goes up to the service desk that divides 2 aisles, spends 30 seconds sniffing and looking around, as if he was choosing the direction to go now. He walks peacefully to room number 310, but is surprised by a closed door. The doctor following him thought he would just move on and look for another patient to pester, but to his surprise, the cat sits delicately in front of the door and waits. The doctor. David decides not to interfere, as he was only there to observe, and waits patiently with the cat until 25 minutes later a nurse opens the door. The adorable and always friendly hospital employee greets the kitten and asks if he would like to come in to visit, and the animal goes through the door towards the patient, who was there, in a fetal position and looking very weak. The doctor then thinks that this could be Oscar's victim, the Angel of Death, which was the nickname that was circulating in the hospital for the cat. However, the animal does not spend even 1 minute inside the room and then leaves. At that point, Dr. David was already accepting that he would be there to waste his day on something completely stupid and clueless. He began to question his own mental health and judgment. Would you really stop spending a nice day off chasing a stupid cat just on rumors and reports by hospital staff? He thought he was better than that and was about to throw his notes away and walk away, but at this point Oscar quickly moves and enters the room opposite, number 313, and the doctor, who was already there, was curious to check one last his visit once. The door was open, and on the bed was a lady who looked to be quite old. She was in a beautiful room, surrounded by ornaments and pictures of children who looked like her grandchildren. He breathed slowly and in short intervals, but he seemed to sleep peacefully. Oscar the cat then jumps on his bed and seeks comfort on the lady's side, looks around as if analyzing the situation, and finally lies in the same bed as her. The then doctor decides to wait. After an hour, the cat was still in the same position, and after the nurse noticed the animal's continued presence, she began to search the lying lady's files, looking for a number for any of her relatives. Hospital employees were already so sure of the animal's powers that when they noticed that he stayed with the patient for a long time and having the same behaviors as before, they already called relatives to come say goodbye. And no wonder, Oscar had his reputation. The officials had already counted 25 patients in a row that he would have hit. And after half an hour, the family starts to arrive and wonder what a cat was doing in their relative's bed, and a young boy, who appeared to be one of the woman's grandchildren, even tries to remove the cat from there, but it's interrupted by his mother. "Don't do it, he's helping your grandmother get to heaven," said the woman. And after 30 agonizing minutes, the old lady takes her last breath and leaves peacefully sleeping, just as she was before. Hearing the sound of the heartbeat machines, which indicated the woman's death, stop, Oscar peacefully gets up and leaves. As if he'd done his job and now let the family process his grief in peace, unhindered. The animal then drinks the water from its pot and lies down on its bed, as if resting after a hard day's work. There were no more deaths that day, and it looked like someone would only go from this one to a better one when they had the pussy's permission to take him in peace. The doctor didn't know what to believe anymore. His conscience said that this was crazy and a cat could not have supernatural or divine powers, but at the same time, he saw and followed with his own eyes what the cat did and knew that it was no coincidence or isolated case. So he decided to post all his crazy notes and theories in a local medical magazine, hoping to hear that he wasn't the only madman who was believing this. What doctor? What David didn't know was that his publication would become extremely popular and that it would arouse the interest not only of doctors, but also of people of all professions. The story did not take long to stop in the media and social networks. It attracted much of the press and made Dr. David to write an entire book based on notes he took while the cat made its rounds. The animal is now very famous and is already 16 years old, accumulates TV participation in series such as Dr. House, The Simpsons, and being mentioned in several movies. It was announced in 2010, even a work in theaters, based entirely on the book by Dr. David. There wasn't a single one who didn't want to hear the story of a cat predicting who would die and who would survive. Emails and comments began to arrive with theories and explanations for the phenomenon, which are, to this day, the most accepted by Dr. The bug would then have no decision-making power, he just smelled chemicals released by the body when someone is about to die. and that the animal is a rare type that is very sensitive to these smells, and it was extremely lucky or unlucky to have ended up in a hospital right away, a place that has several of these. Whatever the reason he's there when people leave, the truth is that the Angel of Death nickname for the kitten is the complete opposite of what he does. The animal may be grumpy with other people, but it is there and keeps others company when they need it most, preventing many from dying alone. He also helps families who want to pay their last respects and say goodbye, as whenever he spends a lot of time lying next to a patient, the nurses call the relatives and tell them to go as soon as possible. In this way, Oscar made it possible for many people to say goodbye and prevented many patients from dying alone, being a true hero of the hospital, just like all the other staff. Well, if you liked this story, leave your support for our job, like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend.